Thank you so much for being with us today. This is Real Talk with Miss Brenda. I'm Miss Brenda, and this is Paula and Wendy with me today. Two of my favorite people in the whole world. I can't wait for you to meet them. Wendy.
Yes, ma'am.
I know where you've been for the last gazillion years.
The
Tell
last
me
14 years, yes, ma'am.
For the last 14 years you've been with
14,
us.
Been with you.
Oh, my goodness. She handles a lot of the legal business for our center because most of our girls have a legal background. I guess just about every one of them
Just
does.
about.
And Wendy works with that. Wendy, before Lovelady, tell me a little bit about what you did to get to Lovelady.
It was mostly forgeries of prescriptions that got me to
Oh,
the
all
center.
she did, let's see if we
Just-
got this
just
right.
that.
All she did was get doctors' names and forge prescriptions.
Just their names and their DEA numbers. Yeah, yeah.
Name and DEA numbers and just amazing. Let's go a little further. Why would you want to do that?
Just to support my addiction. Yeah.
How'd you get? Boy, I got to pull
I
it out of
worked
her.
at UAB
Okay, that's-
hospital, and so I kind of learned.
You want to do a call out to UAB? No.
No, not for that. But they were a great employer, by the way.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so I kind of learned a little bit about calling in prescriptions there. And but previous to that, I had written some, and I just literally took a prescription that my gynecologist had written me, whited it out, made copies, and wrote prescriptions for myself, and they filled them. That's how I started. Of course, this was
Wow.
many moons ago. This was like the 90s, so it's a lot more strict now than it was then.
Yes, because of people like you that we all have to go through what we have to get a legitimate prescription
Correct.
filled.
Accurate.
So what were your drugs?
Benzos, Xanax, and Lortab. Started out just benzos, and about 10 years in, I added the Lortabs. So it was a dual addiction for the last 10 plus years.
Well, you were addicted to Xanax.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, everybody I run up into that's on Xanax steals.
I did.
You steal?
I did.
What is it about
I
Xanax
don't
that
know.
makes you
I don't
steal?
know. Just anything. I mean, and you don't even need it. It's crazy.
I was talking to one of the girls today that she was in trouble for stealing a sewing machine from Walmart. I said, what were you doing stealing a sewing machine? Do you sew? Never sewn in her life. She just did it because she was on Xanax.
Yeah, literally the worst. I got arrested for stealing at the gift shop in Princeton Hospital. Just,
They got some good stuff.
they do have some good stuff.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Just wrote prescriptions. Where would you get their DEA numbers?
Off their prescriptions. Like if they wrote me a prescription, it's on the pad.
So you went to doctors and would get a real prescription in something.
Right. And I didn't necessarily go for that. Like legitimately went to the doctor and I would just keep their numbers. I had a book of about 10 different doctors' numbers that I had.
And you would call them in your name?
My name and other people's names, not just mine. And I had a big calendar of where I picked up each prescription and what pharmacy, whose name it was in. And yeah.
Did you ever sell them? No.
No.
You just wanted to do them
No.
all. How much did you get up to?
Just depending on what I had. Like the more I had, the more I would take. Does that make sense? If I had more, I took more. But always, I would say I took probably about 10 milligrams of Xanax a day and probably about 60 milligrams of Lortab. That's just on a light day.
What, on a heavy day?
Probably close to double that. Probably double.
Wow. I wouldn't be able to walk.
Right.
So I'm going to come back and I want to hear a little bit about your childhood.
Okay.
Whatever gave you the courage to go fraudulently write all these prescriptions?
I think just working in the medical industry, it just looked so easy. Like, you know what I mean?
I know,
Like-
it doesn't look easy to me.
But you didn't work there. So, I mean, you know what I mean? So I had called prescriptions in for the doctors I work for, and it's just, there's nothing to it.
What did you do? What was your making money job?
Making money job? I worked for attorneys most of the time.
So You were legal in the daytime and fraudulent
Not
at
always.
night.
As my addiction got worse, then I wasn't working at all.
It was a full-time job trying to keep yourself in drugs.
Right. Trying to
Yeah.
just, because you didn't feel like getting out of the bed if you didn't have them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't even roll out. Paula, all right, talk to me a little bit about it. I know you did a lot of prescription writing, but
Yes,
yours
ma'am.
is a totally different thing. Talk to me about what happened.
Well, where do you want me to start? Just at the...
Anywhere you want
Okay.
to start.
So, I graduated nursing school around 1993. I was valedictorian in my nursing class, and I thought I had a really good life and had everything together. Started working as a nurse and quickly made my way to
Married with children?
what I call the top. I was married once and then divorced, and then when I remarried, I married a doctor, and we had our own clinical practice in our small town.
So you really knew, this woman is the most amazing nurse. I absolutely, whatever's wrong with me, I call Paula. Hey, this is what, she is the most amazing nurse I've ever seen. We're going to talk about why she won't go back to nursing in a minute.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so go ahead. Tell me.
So then with that became money, power, and before I knew it, I was quickly abusing medications, and
What was your DOC?
well, it was Adderall, and then that led to opiates, and then that led to benzos. Not Xanax, but Klonopin.
Good, I'm glad you weren't stealing. You
And,
ran into Wendy out there.
So I started not only calling in and writing prescriptions for myself, but in our kids' names, in patients' names, really in everybody's name.
How much did you get up to?
Oh my goodness. Adderall, probably about 150 milligrams a day.
Oh my God, you didn't know if you were coming or going.
I did not.
DOC, if you don't know, for drugs means drug of choice. DOC also means Department of Corrections. So I
It
think
does.
that's
Sometimes that one DOC leads to the
that's
other.
right.
does.
One DOC
It often
takes you
goes
to the
hand
other.
in hand.
So, how long did you do all this?
Oh my
wildlife?
goodness, it was for years. It was major damage, and then...
Because nobody would even question what you
They
were
did
doing.
not. The pharmacies would rather take my side than anyone else's. And I had established a good rapport with them, and it's like Wendy and I talked about earlier. I mean, they just pretty much trusted us, which was not good.
Not for them.
No. And I can remember when the DEA and the task force started investigating, it was it was a very horrible experience. And I remember...
Tell me about that.
Well, the first time I was arrested, I went to a Rite Aid in Columbus, Mississippi, and I had actually sent someone in to get it. And then, so I'm sitting outside waiting, and all of a sudden I see all these police cars just pull up. And I waited there in my vehicle probably about, I don't know, what seemed like a lifetime. And I was already so shot out, and I was thinking, I was really about to start withdrawing, and that's why I had got a
Right.
friend to go in there to get it, or I thought was a friend. And
She was started what?
withdrawing, and I was so sick. And I remember thinking, do I need to run, or do I
Right.
need to go in?
Right.
But at that point, I got out and I went in, and I remember I went in.
Did the friend turn you in?
They arrested him as well. And I went in, started throwing my weight around, which was nothing, and acting a complete fool. They took my phone, and they said, we really don't want to arrest you, but the way you're acting,
Yeah.
just go ahead and get in the car. And then that started the spiral downhill of everything coming to a
What
head.
exactly were you on right then?
At that point,
Adderall.
OxyContin, and Klonopin.
All three of
All
them?
three. Yes, ma'am.
And you were withdrawing from all three
I
of them?
was. I was
Oh my
very
God, I
sick.
can't even imagine how sick you were.
I was very sick. So that sent me to jail for a 72-hour hold. And I literally remember I felt like I had sandbags on my legs. Like I honestly felt like I couldn't walk. And every day I would just somehow or another get the strength to walk to the payphone and call for help.
Yeah.
And then finally this bondsman came and bailed me out after 72 hours. I had no money. I had to pawn everything that I had.
Yeah.
Well, he put it up for me, and until I could get the money. And then that started bringing everything to light. And then from that point, I accrued state and federal charges.
Yeah, I'm sure getting your phone, when they got your phone, that probably had all kinds of info in it. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. And you would have thought that would have been enough, but it wasn't. It continued on for a little while after that.
You're kidding.
I'm not kidding.
Why you out on bond?
Yes, ma'am.
Whoa. I know you for who you are today.
Yes, ma'am.
And I know when you came into the center, but I can't remember everybody when they came in. I can't put that picture with this picture.
God's
Yeah,
grace.
that's what Jesus will do. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Just God's grace.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
Just God's grace.
It's not just
Exactly.
It is His grace.
Oh,
It
His grace.
is. Without that, none
This
of
is
us
all
would be
Him.
here.
That's right.
So after you got out on bond, by this time your family's kind of kicked you to the curb.
Yes, ma'am.
Your kids.
Well, my kids never gave up on me, but I was torn away from them during that time.
I read that you were so shut out that you didn't even go to your son's graduation for high school.
I did not. I showed up, but it was after the whole graduation. It was horrible. I was so shut out.
Just can't see it. I'm so glad I don't see that person today.
Yes, ma'am.
So, you didn't have anything. So, did the judge send you to Lovelady?
Well, my federal and my state officer gave me two choices because I continually rebelled and I continually kept getting put in jail, and we reached a point where they said, they teamed up
You mean there
together.
was a cycle with going to
It
jail?
was a cycle.
How many
because I
times
just
did you
kept,
go?
I believe probably about 4 times. My last time was in Pickens County Jail, and I sat there that time for about 30 days. And they said, this is your two choices. You can either go to this place called the Lovelady Center, and I remember they pulled it up and showed it to me and bragged on it, and I said really bad things. Me.
Shame on you.
I did. I cussed my officers out, and I told them there was no way I was going to the Lovelady, that I would rather go to prison. And so then they they saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And I'm so thankful for God's grace and for them believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. I had really just given up hope. I had given up on life. So at that point in my life, it really didn't matter to me about learning a new way to live, because I really felt like my life was over.
Well, let me ask you something. You lived in a small town,
Yes, ma'am.
and everybody knew you.
Yes, ma'am.
Was that not awful?
It was terrible. Terrible.
I'm so sorry. And so after you were doing that, what was it that they showed you about the center made you not want to go?
Well-
I've got to ask that, Wendy.
It was just my mind. I was shut out. Like, I literally could not make a good judgment decision at all. And at that point, I was so dark. My mentality was dark. And, but I do want to add that Brother Glenn, he came and saw me every week in jail to see if I had changed my mind. Probably about 3 weeks in, we had a good heart-to-heart, and I was like,
He's a Lovelady fan.
he is. I said, I've changed my mind. And he could see slowly a change in me, but still didn't believe in me yet.
Right.
And so he picked me up from jail, took me by his church in a small town so I could tell my kids goodbye and my mother. And I literally cussed everyone out in church because my mama packed the wrong toothbrush for me. That just shows you where my mind was. And
Was there other people there? No.
it wasn't like a church service. This was on November 3rd of 2011. And then I left from there, and he brought me straight to the Lovelady. And he came in, I didn't know he did this, but he told everyone in the center, Miss Shay, whoever would listen, be aware of her. I give her 2 weeks, and she's going to leave. She will skim under the radar. Don't let her get by with anything. And so at that particular time, I still wasn't sure about everything, but I do know one thing for sure. When I walked through the front doors at the Lovelady, I literally felt something that said to me, this is home. I had no idea that it was the Holy Spirit at the time.
Right.
But since I learned that, and it's been home ever since. I knew that that's where I was supposed to be.
Well, I'm sure glad you are. Okay, were you raised in drugs?
No, ma'am. I had a good life. I was not raised in drugs.
Valedictorian of your nursing class.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, Wendy,
Yes, ma'am.
what about, tell me, wow. So you worked at UAB.
For a small season, yes.
Okay, but tell me a little bit about growing up and all. Did you come from drugs?
Did not. I didn't come from drugs. My childhood was great. My parents divorced when I was about 15. I think I was 15 when they divorced. And my dad got mixed up with some gentleman from Miami and ended up
We're going to call them gentlemen.
and ended up dealing cocaine. And I don't mean like dealing a gram or two. I'm talking about kilos and kilos of cocaine.
And he went to prison.
He did not go to prison. He got arrested for trafficking.
He turned,
Crazy enough, I had just started working for these great attorneys, and they got him an attorney. We didn't have to pay for anything. I mean, they were fabulous. Fabulous. Yeah. And so he ended up, they dropped it down to a possession charge, and he just did probation.
he never had anything else.
He has not ever had anything else. Like my dad, my whole life was, like I never saw him smoke a cigarette or anything.
Just dealing cocaine.
Just, yeah. And
Silly.
I was 19 when he got arrested. I had just gotten married. I had just started working for that law firm. That's where my Xanax addiction started. I had just started working for a law firm.
You were nervous?
Well, they had they put a lot of responsibility on me really fast. And so I worked there. I had just gotten married, and then
So we can blame them for her.
no. And then my dad got arrested. So I had a lot of things going on. So I had a lot of anxiety, and so I went, and the doctor put me on Xanax, and
No looking back.
No looking back. 19. I was 19. It was in 1990, and I quit taking
Had
Xanax
you
in
ever been on any
2010.
more drugs?
I'd smoke pot here and there, but nothing where it ruled my life. No. Because that literally ruled my life.
Okay.
And I remember the very first time that I found Xanax at the center. We found somebody that had, somebody had some. And I remember holding them in my hand and walking up the stairs and thinking, I cannot believe that this little pill controlled my life for so long.
Absolutely.
For 20 plus years. A little tiny little pill controlled everything I did.
It's what that
Everywhere.
little pill did.
Yeah, everywhere I went, everything, because I had to plan to make sure I had enough pills to be able to do, you know what I mean, to be able to function.
I've often wondered about it. People that get on stuff like that, what happens is you wake up in the morning, you got to figure out where you're going to get this, how many you need to get through the day.
Right.
Every day.
Every day.
I believe I would have done it the night before, so I'd be laid out.
Well, yeah, most of the time you do. Try to make sure you
I
have
would be a
Yeah.
nervous wreck.
All right. Yeah. Yeah.
So you had a normal childhood.
Normal childhood.
Nobody's on drugs.
Nobody's on drugs.
Okay,
Not
so
until I'm a teenager.
huh?
Not until I'm a teenager.
So you got married.
I
you
got
got
married.
a divorce.
Got a divorce.
No children.
No children. Still no children.
Yeah, well, that's okay. Okay, so now tell me about getting to the Lovelady Center.
Best decision I ever made. I was on probation too, and my probation officer told me about the Lovelady Center. And every month I would go, and he'd say, "Well, can you pass your drug test?" And I'd say, "No, sir." And he'd say, "Well, are you ready to go to the Lovelady Center?" "Not yet." And he said, "Okay, well, I'll see you next month." So he just kind of, fed me that little bit.
Well, now
and
they
then-
mostly don't do like that.
Yeah, right. And then after a few months, I came to the center, but I didn't tell him that I came until I had been there for a few months because I thought y'all were crazy, and I wasn't going to stay there. I was like, these people are crazy. I'm not
You
staying
thought I
here.
was crazy.
Not you specifically, I was like, I'm not staying here.
Let's blame it on
I was
malignancy.
totally
Crazy.
opposite.
I called my mom and I was like, I'm not staying here. And she's like, well, let's just give it 60 days. And I ended up staying almost 3 years before I ever moved out of the building.
Oh,
So you didn't like us.
Not
you
at
didn't
first.
Like us. You'd rather go to
I
prison.
didn't like you before I got to you,
Right.
but I knew that's where I was supposed to be as soon as I walked through the door.
Oh, listen, they
like,
come
this
through
is
the
home.
door sometimes kicking and screaming.
Kicking and screaming.
I'm not coming here. All this God stuff, they're crazy.
Yeah,
But so, Wendy, you think I'm crazy now?
not at all.
I didn't think
One
so.
of my most favorite people in the whole wide world.
Absolutely.
If I'm crazy, you're crazy too, huh?
Right, exactly.
So he just said, "Tell me about when you first got there." You told me a little bit.
My dad brought me. Didn't even help me bring my stuff in. Literally pulled up and said, "Get your SHIT and get out of the car," because they were done. You know what I mean? They were all just sick of me.
Well,
Sick
he
of me.
couldn't have said too much. Him getting arrested for pot.
Well, I know.
I mean, for cocaine.
For cocaine, yeah, but that was years back. We fast forwarded, a lot of years since then. So I came in and I struggled a lot. I think because when you take some substances like that, it's hard to just not have them and get. I didn't want to be social. I didn't want to have to. I wasn't ready to talk or do all the things I needed to do, and it took me a few months to really get into the program. And then once I did, it was little by little, everything just started changing.
Amen.
Tell everybody what you do now.
What I do now, I'm over the legal department at the Lovelady Center. So literally we look at every single woman that comes in the center's stuff to see what they have, to see if they are court ordered or if they're DHR or probation or wherever they're from. Paroled or wherever they are.
My first love is always going to be the women from
prison.
prison because
Right.
that is
That's how we started. That's how we
Absolutely.
started.
that is why that's where God called me, or at least I thought that was all I was going to do. But He always surprises me, so
Yeah.
You work with the women. Do you love it?
I love it. I can't imagine doing anything else.
We don't pay as good as we're a nonprofit, so money's tighter than it is in the secular world. But God has sent people to work at the Lovelady Center who was called. The other day I was at the center and I was sitting there and I was watching and just listening. And I'm not there every day anymore because I write, which we've talked about books, and I do other stuff. But I'm back now, and I'm be there about 3 or 4 days a week, 4 hours a day. And I work at the thrift store a lot. But I was watching the girls, and I was looking at the center, and so many people call it my center, and because I am Brenda Lovelady. God used me, probably because I was to a point in my life where he could have told me to jump off the building, and I probably would have gone. But the other day I was thinking about, well, it is kind of, I do kind of think it's mine. And I got to looking at everybody, and I promise you, if there was some way that I could have picked that building up and just held it and loved on it, I would.
Yes, ma'am.
I love what God has done there. It is the most amazing thing I've ever
It's
seen.
amazing.
I'm telling you, I would just pick it up, kiss all over it, and
amazing.
let it keep on going. You know, we've had to work so hard on it. And goodness, we got some messy people. And it's an old building. We have to repair it constantly. And I love everything about it.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, and you've gotten to that point too, haven't you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I can't imagine getting up and going anywhere else.
Me neither.
I really
It's
can't.
a passion.
I have a big statue with Moses outside my office, and his hand is gone.
It is gone.
I'm so upset about Moses' hand.
I don't know where it went to.
And I said, we're going to put a scarf around it so that nobody can see he doesn't have a hand.
That's right.
Okay, so that's that. So now, did your family do any drugs?
No, ma'am.
Not any at all.
No, ma'am. Not any at all.
Well, I know that I've helped several other nurses, and it's an ordeal, but it's so possible to get their nursing license back. Did you give yours up?
I did.
Why do you not want to go back to nursing?
Well, because I honestly know 100% without a doubt I'm doing exactly what God has called me to do.
You understand you can make a lot more money.
I totally understand that, but I'm doing what God has called me to do. So it's not about the money. It's about following His lead and what He has for me. So I know I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.
Gosh, that's wonderful. That is so
I could not
wonderful.
imagine doing anything else or being anywhere else. And considering how hard I fought it 13 years ago, it'll be
Right.
13 years on November 3rd.
Awesome.
And how long for you, Wendy?
14.
What was your date?
April 21st, 2010.
It's been 14. And yours
November 3rd, 2011.
will be.
13 years since I walked through the door.
Okay, now tell me what happened when you first walked through the door, besides you were probably still sick.
Well, actually, this last time, that last go around in jail, they actually detoxed me. They gave me all my stuff in small portions and detoxed me for that whole month. That's the first time that ever happened, and that I consider that a God thing.
That has to be.
For
'Cause
sure.
I don't know if you
I don't
would have
know.
lived through it.
Me neither. And
Detoxing is terrible.
it is horrible.
I feel so sorry for the women who are being detoxed.
Absolutely. My heart goes out to
My
them.
heart goes out to them. I want to, you know.
Yeah, it's a process.
Especially if you've been through it, then you do
Right.
know for sure.
Yeah, I remember day 7. I was like, what do you mean? This is the last day you're going to give me anything. What do you
Why?
mean? Because day 7's the
Yeah.
end of detox. And I was like, what do you
What?
mean that's all?
Because just because you get off of detox, though, does not
Right.
mean your
This-
body still isn't detoxing.
Right.
Yeah, it still goes
It
on
took a
for a
long
while.
time for
How long?
Oh my goodness, I really think it's different for different people and their
And different- and
metabolism
drugs, depending on
and
what you
drugs
did,
for sure.
yeah.
And you're so.
And the mind. It took my mind probably a good 6 months to a year
Right.
to get back on
I
track.
agree.
Well, I
with
mean,
that.
I don't see how your mind was working. Your mind didn't
My
know
mind
if
was
you were
not
trying
working.
to speed up or slow
Slow
down.
down.
It was so confused. I was so confused.
I mean, it was going all over the place. Were you ADHD as a child?
No, ma'am.
You just like the high,
I did.
getting around, moving fast.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you sleep?
No, ma'am. Not much. I was literally, what is the word, tweaked out?
Tweaked out.
I was tweaked out. Kind of like a hamster on a wheel,
Just going.
just all the
Going.
time. It was very sad and scary.
How did Shay treat you?
Shay just literally greeted me and put me under her wing, I call it. And to this day, I have no doubt that she helped shape and mold me into who I am today.
Shay was the first woman that came into the program. She came in straight from Tutwiler, and she taught me so much of what I know. She taught me the streets. I have a PhD in streets because of Shay. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
she taught me everything. And we get somebody like you in, and she said, "Oh, Mama, we got a serious one." I say, "Okay," but she taught you a lot.
She did.
I think she taught us all so
I've
much.
worked under her through laundry, housekeeping, and then in intake. I worked in intake for 6 months.
You know, that's one thing that you need to know about the Lovelady Center. You can come in and you can be a doctor with a PhD in psychology, and you're still going to clean floors,
Yes, ma'am.
do the laundry, empty the trash. We all have to do the same thing. We're like a little city in there,
Yes, ma'am.
and everybody has to work different jobs. What was the hardest job you had?
Really? I don't think any of them were hard. I think that they were, it was just like I was supposed to be there. So I loved it. I loved every one of them.
Well, boy, when you fell in love with the center,
I
you
did.
fell in love. You're like me.
It's
you
the
could
joy
pick
of
it
the
up.
Lord.
You can pick it up and hug it.
I know if he can change me, he can anyone.
Amen.
So you're happy.
I am just happy and joyful and just.
Are you back with your children?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So since that time, Brad graduated college, and I was there on the front row.
Amen.
And so.
Missed the high school.
But I was there for college,
Amen.
and now Brett is graduating this year. He'll graduate
school.
in May.
And you've got your puppy.
And I have my puppy.
She
And I have
does.
a great husband.
Yes.
I
And
love your husband.
And
I do
all of my family is back. You know, we're great. My sister wasn't talking to me when I came. My dad barely talked to me. So, yeah,
Everything's back to normal. for
everything's
both
back
of
the way
Yes,
God
ma'am.
intended it to be.
Absolutely.
I am just so happy to have you both, and I love hearing your story. I still can't imagine but I can't imagine you any other way. So I'm glad that I don't remember it. I'm getting kind of old. I don't remember every single person as they
Right.
come in.
Well, the first time I met you, I was already, I was fixing to graduate. So I'd already been in the program for almost 6 months.
That was the same
God,
with me. I
you
didn't.
don't need
'Cause
to
I
say
didn't-
that where people
well,
see
well,
it.
because I had
They think I'm not there.
No.
I tell you who does see me.
You were there every day.
every day.
Yeah,
But I was in kid zone, so I was kind of,
everybody that gets in trouble sees me.
I was not in trouble.
I was
so-
not in trouble.
Okay, good. So
Yeah.
That's
it's
why.
okay that I didn't see you. But listen, thank y'all so much for being here today.
Thank you
Thank
for having
I
you.
us.
It's
just
an
love
honor and a
you, love
blessing.
you, love
Definitely
you.
an honor.
We love you.
And I'm so glad you're here. Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am. Thank you so much.